Om Jnana-timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Continuing one topic we were discussing yesterday about service. So service, that also brings into consideration exactly which engagement we will do in Krishna's service. Because there are many, many things to be done in Krishna's service. Unlimited activities to be done in Krishna's service. But exactly how we should be engaged. Now, one consideration is engaging according to our propensity. Sometimes you would hear Prabhupada say that whatever you like to do, do it for Krishna. If you like to paint, paint for Krishna. If you like to cook, cook for Krishna. Even one time I heard Prabhupada say that if you like to mix with beautiful girls, that is also alright. You do that, bring them to Krishna consciousness. Another thing Prabhupada used to say was, do the needful. In other words, in Krishna consciousness there are certain things that have to be done. And a devotee sees what needs to be done. One time Prabhupada gave the example, you can imagine if Krishna he's been playing his pastimes on the bank of the Yamuna and he's lying down feeling hot. So someone should fan him. So if you say, well, it's not my propensity. But a more advanced devotee sees what needs to be done and does it. So whether we're engaged according to our propensity or we see what is to be done, do the needful. Actually, in the neophyte stage, mostly if we can be engaged according to our propensity, that is very good for us to advance. In other words, whatever we like to do anyway, if we do that in Krishna's service, then that will be easier for us to make advancements. But a devotee who has a deeper understanding, he's prepared to do anything in Krishna's service. He doesn't consider whether I like to do it or not. He only thinks whether what does Krishna want me to do? What does my spiritual master want me to do? So that is a higher level of consciousness. That means the devotee is more surrendered. Now, exactly what our engagement will be and how we are to engage in Krishna's service, that should be done under some direction and guidance. Because we may think we know what Krishna wants, but actually we don't. We cannot imagine how to serve Krishna. So to turn these fans on. Looks like someone's feeling a little hot. Feeling hot? Now, so as to engage in activities under direction and so as to coordinate the activities of the Krishna conscious movement, there is a hierarchy. So everyone has to work under some guidance or under some authority. That fearful word, authority. In the modern age, there is rebellion against authority. But without following an authority, then there is anarchy. In other words, everyone just acts according to their own mind. So in our Krishna conscious movement, there is also an authority system. So devotees, they all work under some authority. Even those who have authority over others, they're also working under some other authority. Now, sometimes the authorities may not be as competent as we might hope them to be. After all, mostly people come to Krishna consciousness because they don't fit into the material world. But even in the material world, many of the so-called competent authorities are quite incompetent also. But anyway, that system is there to... Generally we work under the direction of authorities in Krishna consciousness, unless there is some serious error on the part of the authorities. So this also helps us to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, because we have to develop a submissive attitude and a cooperative attitude. Which brings us to the next important topic of association with devotees. This point is stressed so much throughout the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada has written that even when one becomes ants devotee, even then association with devotees is essential. We have to practice Krishna consciousness in association with devotees. Srila Prabhupada gave the example that one stick, if you get one thin twig, it can easily be broken. But many sticks together in a bundle, you cannot break it. So in the same way, if we try to practice Krishna consciousness just on our own, without associating with devotees, we can be easily broken by Maya. But when we all come together, then we give each other strength. Just like here at the Mayapur festival, I think we're all feeling much enthusiasm, is it not? We're feeling like a good charge of energy. So that comes by the very nature of the holy Dham. But also because so many devotees have come together to glorify Krishna. So the more devotees that come together, then the more blissful it becomes. We are not like those kind of sadhus, they like to go off in the jungle by themselves. But rather, we like that more and more devotees will come. And actually, even though there are many, many devotees in our movement compared to previously, we still want more and more and more people to come. Whenever a devotee he'd say he's driving through a town, he looks out and he sees all the people and he thinks, how nice it would be if they were all devotees. So we're making plans here in Mayapur for a big city of 50,000 people with facilities for hundreds of thousands of people to come and visit. Now, as we're experiencing, there can be some kind of physical discomfort by so many people all coming together. But that is more than compensated by the tremendous spiritual boost we get from all being together. So this seminar is about how to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And we're discussing some different points by which ourselves as individual devotees, we can apply in our individual lives so that we can individually make advancement. But it's very important to remember that it's not just me and Krishna, but that we're all together and we're all helping each other. Every devotee has to think not only about himself, but about the other devotees also. So all the devotees, we're all helping each other to come up together towards Krishna. Even Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, he addressed his disciples as, my friends, saviors from evil. Of course, he's eternally perfect, Mahabhagavat Paramahamsa. But I can see that it's not, you're coming here to hear from me with the idea you may be benefited, but I'm also being benefited. You're giving me the chance to speak about Krishna. This way I'm also becoming benefited. So we're all helping each other. It's one big family of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, on the material platform, what is our relationship? See, just like this body is from London in England, and there may be some babushka from Siberia or something. What relationship is there? But we all come together on the spiritual platform, and we're all now part of the same spiritual family. So this society is set up by Srila Prabhupada to bring everybody together on the spiritual platform. Prabhupada wrote that we have set up this International Society for Krishna Consciousness just to give people the chance to associate together on the spiritual platform. In the Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, there's one verse which describes how devotees associate together with loving exchanges. Who knows that verse? Dadati, who can say? Who can say loud? Dadati. Go on. Then translation. Bhumte bhojayate cha. Yeah. Translation?
I am speaking Hindi. Holiness.
Hindi में बताएं. हम
ददाती जो आपको मुझे देता है ददाती तो ये मक्खा भी अपनी राज की बातें खाता है, दूसरे से राज की बातें सुनता है और उनके लिए उसको प्रसाद खिलाता है और उनका प्रसाद खाता है, इससे प्रीति लक्षण बढ़ता है, उससे प्रेम बढ़ता है.
हाँ, 6 प्रकार प्रीति लक्षण. I guess we better translate that in English. So, offering something to devotees, receiving anything that is offered by devotees. Dadati pratigrihnati guhyamakhyati pritchati. To reveal one's mind in confidence to devotees and to inquire from them confidentially. That means reposing one's trust in devotees, to feed some prasad to the devotees, and to accept prasad when it is offered by devotees. These are 6 kinds of exchanges of love that devotees exchange between them. I'm most expert in the accepting prasad department. Miss Satyamadhavi, she is expert in the giving prasad department. So Prabhupada wrote in the purport of this verse that this International Society for Krishna Consciousness is set up just to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges. Now you'll find throughout Prabhupada's books, he gives many different reasons for why the Krishna Conscious movement has been started. In one place he wrote that this Krishna Conscious movement is started to fulfill the desires of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In another place it is written that this Krishna Conscious movement is set up to give direction to the leaders of the world. So there are many purposes of the Krishna Conscious movement. But one of the main ones is just so that we can all come together and be devotees together, so that we can associate together. Now, sometimes we find that association difficult to bear. When we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita about the exchanges between Lord Chaitanya and devotees, it is extremely sweet. Sometimes due to our neophyte condition, we don't behave as sweetly as we should. Nevertheless, we cannot give up the association of devotees. It is the only shelter in this material world. And of course the saying is that familiarity breeds contempt. So sometimes we tend to find the faults in other devotees. But actually every devotee is a very special person. Even if they appear to have so many material contaminations still, anyone who is trying to serve Krishna is very special within this material world. Everyone in this material world is interested simply in gratifying their senses. But a devotee of Krishna, he dedicates his life to the service of Krishna. So the basic principle of living in the society of devotees is respect for all other devotees. Respect for devotees and coming together to serve Krishna. Association with devotees doesn't just mean living in the same building or coming together from time to time as a kind of social club, glorifying Krishna. So we have to learn how to, it means we should associate in such a way as to help each other advance. Sometimes we see that some devotees have a relationship between themselves. They talk and they joke in an almost mundane way. But actually devotees should be very sober and grave. That doesn't mean they can't smile or laugh or joke. But the underlying consciousness of a devotee is very grave and sober, because he knows that he has a very serious task. The first serious task is to get himself Maya, and the next serious task is to help in the mission of getting others out of Maya. So devotees, they have to know how to associate with each other. That also requires some knowledge of Vaishnava etiquette. You see, Vaishnava society is not a democracy. Democracy is a modern idea which is invented on a false basis. On the false basis that everyone is equal in all respect. But in Vaishnava society there is considerations of juniors, equals and seniors. So we should know how to behave. Those who are those who are junior to us, who are newly coming to Krishna consciousness, we have to try to help them in Krishna consciousness. They may not know what to do, they may make so many mistakes. We have to be very tolerant of them and helpful. And those who are seniors, we have to be very respectful towards. Actually, this point of tolerance, that is very important, not only with junior devotees, but with all devotees. Because although I was just saying that all devotees are great persons, at the same time we have to realistically understand that we're all still struggling to become purified. Everyone in the Krishna conscious movement completely devoted. There may be so many different faults. So a devotee, he should try to see the good in other devotees. There is a place for correction and instruction and even chastisement. But generally in Kali Yuga, people, they're quite fragile in their personalities. Sometimes you read in scriptures about someone goes and they have to undergo severe tests from their guru, extremely severe tests. But in Kali Yuga, it's just the nature of the age. We don't have so much strength of character. People very easily, they can be distracted away from Krishna. They can become discouraged. So generally our dealings with others, although it's very easy to find the faults of others, generally our dealings with others should be very encouraging and helpful. And if we develop such an attitude, that will also help not only them to advance, but also ourselves to advance. Because if we develop a critical or skeptical attitude towards other devotees, then Krishna is not pleased. But rather, if we always have the attitude to glorify devotees and find their good qualities, then Krishna is very pleased. And that also makes a very pleasing atmosphere within Vaishnava society. So we have to be very, very careful of making offences towards devotees. Prabhupada, in one place he wrote that our Krishna conscious movement is meant for creating Vaikuntha, a place where there is no envy, even here within the material world. So this kind of backbiting, do you know what that means, backbiting? That means unnecessary fault finding. That is not the Vaishnava spirit. I'll just tell one little story in this regard. This is from Boston in USA in about, must have been 1968, 1969. So there was someone living in the temple there who was known to the other devotees as Mad Peter. Presumably Peter. So he had various eccentric habits, such as sitting right in the entranceway to the temple on the floor with his feet spread out, so that anyone came in the door, they would have to walk over him. And he would sit there reading books, and sometimes he would fall asleep and slump down like this. So devotees were always complaining about him. Prabhupada would say, "Can't you tolerate? Can't you tolerate?" So this story is told by Giriraj Maharaj, who was there at the time. That after some time he was transferred to another temple, and he never thought about, what is that? Presumsky Peter. Presumni Peter. He never thought about him anymore. And after some time he was in India, and then he was many years in India and South Africa. And then after more than 20 years, he visited Los Angeles Temple after more than 20 years. And there are so many devotees, and in the arati, he saw someone. He thought, who is that? Looks familiar. Looks like Mad Peter. So he asked someone, who is that? So he said, well, that's Kushakrata Prabhu in Boston in about 1968. So then Giriraj Maharaj thought, well, Kushakrata, he's the one who's translated 200 books from Sanskrit. So Prabhupada was saying, just tolerate, and see what he's doing now. He's still eccentric, but look what service he's doing. So, unless someone is actually offensive, we should tolerate. Prabhupada said our temples are not meant for lazy or crazy people. Practically everyone is crazy anyway. But as long as we don't create too much disturbance, and if we're not lazy, we should be engaged in the service of Krishna. I've seen myself so many times that someone, if you just if they go on serving, actually so many qualities develop. That the process of Krishna consciousness is actually very purifying. You practically see that as devotees go on, they become enriched with the transcendental qualities which are inherent in the soul. So there's great hope in Krishna consciousness. We don't know what wonderful things will individually and collectively can happen. I mean, look how this movement started. If you see from the external vision, Prabhupada started with a handful of hippies, which Prabhupada described as hippie described as someone who's useless for all purposes. But somehow or other, Prabhupada saw in those, no one else could find anything useful to do. They were just a social nuisance, that's all. They were just considered a social disturbance, the hippies. They had nothing to contribute to society. They were just considered a disturbance. But somehow or other, Prabhupada, and at the beginning, for so many months, they didn't even think to help Prabhupada wash the dishes after he'd cooked for them. For so many months, Prabhupada was cooking prasad, serving it out, and then everyone would say, "Thank you, Swamiji," and go away, and he would clean up. But somehow or other, Prabhupada saw that there is some hope in these people, and he had a vision of a worldwide Krishna conscious movement. And the leaders came out of this rejected class of people. So there's great hope for us. We should see that in our dealings with other devotees, we should see that there is each person, each Vaishnava has the inherent quality to help so many others come to Krishna consciousness. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that a Vaishnava is like a tree in his qualities. That a tree gives shelter to others in the scorching heat or in the rain. It gives fruit, it gives wood, gives its leaves. Here you'll find, in this country you'll find people, they collect the leaves, everything is used. Fruits, flowers, tree is always giving. And even if someone cuts the tree does simply tolerance, that's all. So Vaishnava is meant for doing good for others. So living in a society of devotees means to live with each other, to encourage each other to develop the Vaishnava qualities. Now another point of association with devotees means to give up the association of non-devotees. So, of course, to fully give up in all respects may not be possible. Especially because we are a preaching movement, we have to deal with the people of this world. And many of our devotees, they're living at home with family members who may not be very interested in Krishna consciousness. Or or their neighbors are not interested, or the people they're working with are not interested. So Rupa Goswami recommends that a devotee should not be neglectful in worldly dealings. We should give up association with non-devotees, but on the other hand, if we have some worldly duties to perform, we should not neglect them. But he also advises that a devotee should only deal with the material world as much as is required and normal. So association with non-devotees, that means nowadays there is the mass media. We should be very, very careful of this. Watching TV means associating with non-devotees. Reading books by non-devotees. There may be some use in Krishna consciousness.
Books written by non-devotees.
Yeah, there may be some use. Just like, for instance, if you have to use a computer in Krishna's service, then you may have to read a book to learn how to use it properly. But we should be very careful about reading books which give some kind of philosophical understanding. Actually, by non-devotees, even the newspaper, inherent in their writing are their misconceptions. Just like if you read the newspaper, inherent in the news report is the standard of morality and the aspirations of the writer. Materialistic people are convinced that sense gratification is the goal of life, and that economic development and sense gratification are things to be encouraged. But by associating with non-devotees in the form of books, magazines, TV, very subtly the influence of their non-devotional ideas are put over. At the present time, there is a kind of fashion among some of our devotees to read books by mundane psychologists. But we should know that mundane psychologists, they cannot help us to achieve love of Krishna. They themselves chanting Hare Krishna and taking Krishna prasad and associating with devotees. We should be very careful not to mix or contaminate the pure process of devotional service with mundane ideas imported by confused people. So yesterday I was talking about developing habits that will help us to advance. So it is a habit of materialistic people to watch television. It's like a hypnosis or an addiction. It's just so easy to go turn on the TV. I guess nowadays they do it mostly like this, don't they? And then to get completely mesmerized by whatever nonsense they happen to be showing. And you may say, well, it's something useful to know, the news or some program about some information program. So there may be something useful, but you have to be extremely careful. Just like as those who are preaching, they may see the newspaper because they just to see what is the present situation in the world, and especially if you're preaching to materialistic people, if you use some example from the modern news, then they can associate with that. Although that's also not fully necessary, but it may be used. But that doesn't mean you have to read the newspaper for 2 hours every day. You have to be very, very careful about associating with the material energy. Of course, for devotees who are living in the ashram, mostly this thing about watching TV, I would hope, the question doesn't even arise. For devotees living at home, it can be, especially because it seems like, well, it's the kids, they're running around, they're wild, okay, turn the television on. It's like giving them an injection of intoxication to just that, at least that keeps them out of trouble for some time.
Oh, materialists.
No, even devotee children, even devotees, they sometimes they think, well, the kids are running wild and what to do. Okay, let them watch TV. Yeah. Maybe not in Russia, because I don't think there's anything even slightly interesting on the television. But in the West they have everyone has about 80 different channels.
In Russia they also go.
Now it's coming. In India now they have MTV, ZTV, Sony TV. And here in India, which is the land of great rishis, a land of spiritual realization, you can turn on the TV anytime and watch these monkeys jumping around, screaming and making a lot of noise. This is considered desirable. So, best thing, usually when I'm doing house programs, people ask me about how we can make more advancement. I tell them, I've got one secret for you. You see that TV? Throw it out. Well, they'll say, well, you can also watch Krishna conscious videos. That's also true. If you only do that, that's good. Although some of the videos, I regret to say, which are circulated are also not so wonderful. Anyway, here's some good habits to adopt in our lives. Don't watch TV. Don't talk nonsense. Make that a habit. If there's any nonsense being spoken, just change the subject to Krishna consciousness or go away. Don't spoil your life talking nonsense. And don't eat karmi food. That's another easy thing to do in the modern age of convenience. The modern society is set up so there's sense gratification for your eyes in the form of TV, pornography, and sense gratification for your ears in the form of this so much nasty nonsense music. There's sense gratification for your tongue. You can go any place, any time in the world, and you can buy chips and all kinds of things. Potato crisps and chocolate bars, and cigarettes. America is considered such an advanced country because you can have sense gratification for any one of your senses at any time of the day and night. Instant sense gratification. So, don't eat karmi food. Eat samosas, rasgullas, kachoris, or even just plain rice, dal and sabji. But take prasad. The senses are a network of paths leading to death, and among them, the tongue is most voracious and difficult to control. By eating food cooked by non-devotees, then we imbibe the consciousness of non-devotees. So these are some habits which if we adopt in our life, that will help us to keep very steady in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if we can't control the tongue, we can never control the mind. We can never become Krishna conscious. See, if you have the habit that there's something in the shop, some potato crisp. Okay, I think I have a little space in my stomach. All right, even if not, I can always make some. All right. Okay, let's buy some. What's that?
Crisp, like chips or something?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Anything, whatever, chocolates or whatever. Just the idea that there's something in the shop, okay, I think my tongue would like it, let me buy it. But if you allow yourself to indulge in that, then you can never control the senses. You have to say no to Maya. And if you have a rule in your life that you only eat prasadam and only at fixed times, then it becomes very easy to control the tongue. Otherwise, every time you go into a store, you're thinking, well, maybe I should get an ice cream. Or your senses are all the time wild. You're all the time thinking, maybe it's time to put something onto my tongue. Or some soft drink or something like this. Even soft drink you become. And every time you think, my tongue. So if you have the habit to only take prasad at fixed times, then the agitation of the tongue to always want to be gratified, that is automatically stopped. So these are some very simple habits. If we adopt in our lives, then our mind becomes peaceful and it becomes more easy to fix our mind on Krishna. Otherwise, if we're watching TV, reading karmi books, eating karmi food at any time, then the mind remains wild and uncontrolled. So Hare Krishna, that's all for today. Any question?
What does it mean, friendly relationships among devotees?
Well, friendly, that means, like I said, that we're trying to help each other advance in Krishna consciousness, not mundane friendship. Freedom from animosity and bad feelings, appreciation, mutual appreciation, and willingness to help each other. Just like we may sometimes sit down together and read together, we may discuss with each other about our different aspirations or difficulties in Krishna consciousness. Dadati pratigrihnati, these are the 6 exchanges of love shared between devotees. So in this way devotees, they share exchanges.
You said that we should be tolerant to juniors and respectful to seniors. What about being respectful also toward people?
Вы говорите о терпимости к младшим, почтению к старшим, но как насчет почтения к равным?
So that I mentioned, maybe I wasn't very clear, that the basic attitude towards all devotees is one of respect and appreciation towards all devotees. So that appreciation of devotees means there's respect. Although among equals in friendly dealings, sometimes there may be familiarity, which is not harmful to our progress in Krishna consciousness. Just like you see among Prabhupada disciples, when maybe if they're together, they'll joke with each other, and in a kind of almost like a mocking way, not exactly, but in a joking, friendly way, which they wouldn't do in front of disciples. So that may be sometimes some friendly dealings, some joking like that.
समय पर ही सिर्फ किसी प्रसाद ही लेना चाहिए, जिससे हमारी इंद्रियां शांत होंगी। तो जो प्रसाद किसी काम लेंगे वो मोर और लेस प्रसाद वो
तो है, मतलब जीवा दमन करना, तो निश्चित समय पर प्रसाद लेना। लेकिन ऐसा है कि कनिष्ठ मतलब प्राथमिक स्तर में हम कभी ज्यादा प्रसाद लेते हैं, फिर भी अगर निश्चित समय पर प्रसाद लेना है, धीरे धीरे वो भावना आएगा। मतलब हम किस लिए प्रसाद लेते हैं? जैसे कि हम शक्ति मिलेगा भगवान की सेवा करने के लिए। लेकिन प्राथमिक अवस्था में वो भावना तो इतना मजबूत नहीं है। हम ऐसे सोचते हैं वो प्रसाद है, कचौड़ी है, पूरी है, हलवा है, ठीक है मैं ज्यादा खाऊंगा। लेकिन जब थोड़ा उन्नत होते, इतने सारे अच्छे चीज होने के भी हम जितना काफी है खाली शरीर की पुष्टि के लिए इतना लेना है, और कभी कभी हम ज्यादा भी लेते फिर अगर ज्यादा लेना है तो ज्यादा dancing करना चाहिए. He was asking that about, well, even when we take prasad, sometimes we take too much. So in the beginning, that may be more. But after some time, we think, well, I'm only taking this so that I can get get strength to serve Krishna. So I only take as much as is needed. But sometimes, even then, because prasad is transcendently enjoyable, you may take more. When you take more, dance more. There's one name of Bhima. Vikodara means one who eats a lot and performs wonderful activities, does a lot of work. So Prabhupada said, you can take more prasad like Bhima, but then you should also do more work like him also.
You said that when you don't, if you eat kami food, then you can't, then your senses are uncontrolled. But there are kamis, there are also kamis who are quite calm, and they eat kami food.
They're quite calm. Can you translate that?
Вы говорите, что если принимать кармическую пищу, то можно, то есть чувства могут выйти из-под контроля, но есть кармы, которые довольно спокойные, хотя едят кармическую пищу.
If a non-devotee appears to be peaceful, it doesn't mean that his senses are controlled. It just means that he is peacefully indulging in sense gratification. His goal of life is not to satisfy Krishna. You see, sometimes you may see a devotee who's very active, and you may see a non-devotee who's very calm and peaceful. So you may think, well, the non-devotee is more advanced than the devotee. But simply to appear externally peaceful is not necessarily a sign of advancement. We have to know what is the definition of spiritual advancement. The definition of spiritual advancement is that a person engages his mind, intelligence and senses in the service of Krishna. So a person who very peacefully and calculatingly organizes activities for his sense gratification is not spiritually advanced. He may be in the mode of goodness, although that's very rare in the modern age. Mode of goodness actually means that one is inquiring into spiritual life, but he may not have knowledge of Krishna. Actually, this kind of being cool, that's especially in America, in the West Coast especially, this whole idea of being cool, that's considered fashionable. Hey man, be cool, like that. This is all just for mutual sense gratification. That everyone tolerates everyone else, be liberal and tolerate, and then everyone engages in sense gratification. Whatever you do is okay, everything's cool. In one question.
He's asking, did we consider the question about preaching or feeding?
Well, if it's connected with the subject. Otherwise there are millions of questions. Shrotavyadini Rajat. There are millions of questions, but I think we should connect them with. Yeah, if you can preach on TV, that's very nice. We're not against TV per se, but it's controlled by the demons. Alright, we'll finish there. Hare Krishna. Now, tomorrow is the Shantipur trip, right? So, shall we have this class tomorrow or not? You're going to come back in time? Okay. Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Shri Bhakti Vikasa Maharaj ki